Today, we're diving into a really strange and fascinating trend that's bubbling up from the deep corners of the internet. And, it's one that connects ancient prophecy with our most modern anxieties. I mean, think about it. What if the end date wasn't set by some scientist or a billionaire, but was actually hidden in a system that's like 5,000 years old? Well, that's the very question that's driving millions of people online right now. And look, they're not just curious. They're genuinely looking for answers. Answers to that feeling. You know the one. That feeling that something, somewhere, is just deeply wrong with the world. And they are all typing in the same two words. The Kali Yuga Calculator. It sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, doesn't it? But it's actually rooted in one of the oldest spiritual traditions in the world. And what it suggests, well, to put it mildly, it's pretty unsettling. So what is behind this huge secret search? Honestly, it all starts with a feeling that I think a lot of us can recognize. That sense that the systems we all depend on are, well, they're starting to fray at the edges. It's this whole list of modern anxieties, isn't it? The feeling that crime is going up, that our institutions are completely broken, that just a tiny handful of people have an insane amount of power, and that our own behavior is being shaped by algorithms we don't even understand. People are looking for some kind of framework to explain all this chaos. And believe it or not, they're finding one in a very, very old place. And that old place brings us to the ancient idea behind the calculator, the age of darkness. And to really get what that means, we have to totally rethink our idea of time itself. So just forget everything you know about time being a straight line, moving from the past into the future. In the Vedic tradition, time is more like a great giant wheel that turns again and again through these vast cycles of creation and destruction. Each full spin of this wheel is made up of 4 different ages, or yugas. It always starts with a golden age, the Satya Yuga, and then it slowly descends through these periods of declining virtue and wisdom until it finally ends in the 4th and final stage, the Kali Yuga. And the description of this final age is just chillingly specific. It's defined as a time of spiritual darkness, of widespread corruption, an era where how much money you have is the only thing that matters, where truth is, kind of relative, and where our technology is way, way more powerful than our moral capacity to handle it. Sound familiar? And this isn't some new age interpretation. The ancient texts themselves, like the Bhagavata Purana, they lay it all out in these really stark terms. Justice becomes something you can buy. Human life is devalued. Your character means nothing next to your bank account. It's these kinds of descriptions, thousands of years old, that have kicked off a very modern debate about something else mentioned in the texts, the numbers and the timelines. Right, so this leads us to the calculation itself. Because for centuries, people mostly saw these as myths. But then scholars started to really dig into the numbers that are embedded inside these texts, and suddenly, things got very specific. According to the most traditional interpretation, the scriptures say the Kali Yuga has a precise and totally staggering duration, 432,000 years. I mean, just try to wrap your head around that. It's an almost incomprehensible amount of time. Now, the texts say this age started way back in 3102 BCE, which lines up with the death of Krishna. So if you do the math, that means we're only about 5,100 years into it, with a whopping 427,000 years still to go. So according to this traditional timeline, all this panic makes zero sense. We're just getting started. And this, right here, brings us to the most important question. If the so-called end is so incredibly far away, why has the Kali Yuga calculator become this object of obsession and real anxiety? Why is there this sense of urgency? It's because there are 2 completely different ways of looking at this at the heart of the whole thing. The traditional view sees it as a literal, massive timeline, where we're basically still at the very beginning. But there's a more modern, symbolic view. It suggests the yugas actually represent the rise and fall of civilization itself, and that the darkest, most chaotic phase, the end, could be happening right now. And it's that second view that's fueling the entire online search. And this is really where the argument gets its power. The people who believe in this modern view, they aren't just going on feelings. No, they're pointing to specific symptoms that were predicted in the ancient texts, and they're mapping them directly onto modern data. So the scriptures warned that near the end of the Kali Yuga, specific signs would start to appear. Things like more frequent and intense natural disasters, a total collapse in the ability of people to focus, the rise of fake gurus who promise enlightenment but just deliver ego, and a society that basically worships its own technology, confusing it with genuine human progress. And here is where you see this startling overlap. The ancient prophecy warned of broken systems. Modern data shows a historic collapse in public trust. The text described a world where wealth is the only thing that matters. Economists today are screaming about unsustainable inequality. The prophecy spoke of false teachers and collapsing attention. Our own tech leaders now admit their algorithms are designed to reward outrage over truth. When you put these modern data points next to the ancient prophecy, the pattern that emerges is, well, it's pretty hard to ignore. But here's the most misunderstood part of this whole idea. It isn't about the collapse. It's about what comes after. You see, the texts don't describe an apocalypse in the way we usually think of it. They describe a reset. So the crucial point here is this. The end of the Kali Yuga isn't some extinction-level events, like a meteor hitting the planet. Humanity doesn't get wiped out. Instead, the corrupt systems that we've all built simply fall apart under their own weight. It's a correction, not an annihilation. The end isn't a specific date you can circle on a calendar. It's a threshold. It's that moment when corruption and greed and lies reach a peak and the entire structure just becomes so unstable that it can't stand anymore. And at that point, consequences take over, and the cycle resets itself. And this is the secret. The Kali Yuga Calculator isn't really a tool for predicting some fixed future. It's a mirror. It's reflecting the consequences of our collective behavior. Every war, every financial crisis, every lie told by a leader, it pushes the needle further. Not because of fate, but because our choices have these compounding effects. You know, when you zoom out, you realize this pattern isn't mystical at all. It's structural. We've seen it play out all through history with the rise and fall of empires, from Rome to countless others. It's structural because it reflects this timeless truth about human systems. Unchecked power always, inevitably, leads to the very corruption that brings it all down. A civilization rises, it gets powerful, that power corrupts it, and the corruption leads to a fall, so that from the ashes, a reset can begin. So at the end of the day, the calculator doesn't give us a prediction of doom. It poses a question, back to us. It asks us to look at our world, at our systems, our leaders, our own choices, and decide, how close to the bottom do we really need to get? How far are we willing to push this current version of the world before that great wheel